here, you missing out. This show?
Hey everybody, I'm Mimi, Turnbuckle Talk co-host, VPR co-host. And if I love wrestling, and you love wrestling, and we love wrestling.
Welcome to Women on Wednesday. Ooh. You know, we back again. It's Trey I'm hosting. We got Suzette Victoria. We love wrestling. Hit Club Pro owner, if you didn't know. Today, we got somebody, she be out here co-hosting a lot. Turnbuckle Talk. You saw her on the live podcast we had with Black Rasslin. This is Mimi Chelles. How you doing?
How are you guys? I'm doing great.
Are you doing great, Mimi?
I am. I mean, we have to, right? In spite of what's going on in the world, we've got to kind of like pace it off. Like we do take it in. However, we just need to redirect the energy and make sure that we are okay for our sanity.
Amen to that.
Mm-hmm.
Positivity. All right. So, Mimi, the first question I always ask before we get started, is we love wrestling, Women on Wednesday. Why do you love wrestling, or what started your love for wrestling?
So, I started watching wrestling when I was 9 years old, and I started watching it with my brother-in-law, who used to be, before he married my sister and before he had his daughter, he was kind of like my dad. And we started watching wrestling every Saturdays. And if there was like a Saturday night main event, we would watch that together. I would watch that with him and his friends, and it would consume our Saturdays. And to couple that, in the fourth grade, I had a classmate who also has a wrestling podcast called Big Gray's Wrestling Show. He came in with a Hulk Hogan magazine, WWF magazine, and Hulk Hogan was on the cover. I want to say Andre the Giant might have been on the cover. And we used to have this thing called reading after recess. And our teacher, who was a Black woman, Mrs. Lewis, she used to say, no magazines, but he brought a magazine one day. And we were sneaking and reading the magazine. And ever since then, I've been hooked. I kind of teetered off a little bit when I had my son in 2004, when we always used to have I had a strict bedtime for him so that when he grows up, he can kind of be in that schedule. Not that schedule now that he's 18. So I would put him to bed by 7:30-ish. And at that time, wrestling would come on around, I want to say 9 o'clock on UPN 9 here in New York. And I would watch it every Monday night for as long as it was on. And it was just fascinating. All the players had changed, but I was consumed in it. And I was like, my God, the drama was 10 times heightened. And it was just amazing. And it was it was kind of like an escape for me after, while I'm folding the bibs and the onesies and putting them all away, I would watch wrestling on Monday nights.
Who were some of your favorites when you first started and then when you came back to watching?
So Hulk Hogan, Jake the Snake, although a heel at the time, terrified of him, my favorite heel. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the British Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation. Bret Hart is my absolute favorite. Yeah. I mean, it's very saddened that has happened. But it is what it is. And, it pains me to say it, but unfortunately he's part of history. So it's going to be what it is, but he's the one that brought me really, I thought he was larger than life. I thought he was the hero of all heroes. You know what I mean? Eat your vitamins and say your prayers, right? And when I came back, it was Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was The Rock. It was I hated Triple H at the time. Hated Mr. McMahon because Mr. McMahon was prominent at that time. It was just all of those guys during that time, and it was just campy and risque. I think I was coming on towards the tail end of the Attitude Era. It was awesome.
So we got you here. I'm gonna throw it to Suzette after this question. How'd you get involved in co-hosting these shows? You know, Young Spaces, Young Black Wrestling. Like what drove you to start co-hosting and giving your wrestling perspective?
So, Big Ray, we started with Big Ray and the Wrestling Chick was the first show that we did together. And we've, you know, life happens, right? And I kind of like went into just watching wrestling and writing a little bit about it. But you go through these iterations of co-hosting with certain people and things don't work out for whatever reasons they are. Schedules, the product at the time was a very heavy thing. So I felt like, you know, Monday Night Raw was so hard to get through. And I didn't feel comfortable talking negatively all the time. Like, what is the purpose of that, right? And I was listening to other podcasts that would do the same thing, just be super negative, super, just, it was not good at the time. And we were getting like crap, but I don't want to sit here and talk about it and we would do it like right after the show. So now I'm tired, right? If there was a pay-per-view before, I really didn't want to do it because it was a pay-per-view before. I was up all night the night before, and now I have to stay up till like after 11 o'clock to do a show. I didn't want to do that. So I took a break and then I started again to do it because I said this time, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And I'm going to be consistent because I feel like the product was in a different place. And that was after the pandemic or kind of like the tail end of the pandemic. And so Ellis, who is Shock Undertaker guy, I knew that he and I loved social media. So the one thing that we would always do, we would have like anything new that came up in the metaverse or the social media space, we would send it to each other. And so at this time, I think it was Roman and Jay. It was during that storyline. I started getting excited about wrestling again as soon as Roman came back. And so I was like, hey, do you want to do like a wrestling show? And he was like, sure. So Corey, do you know Corey? My Kicks or My Fix. He and Corey were in the same wrestling circle. And then my friend April, who I was friends with beforehand, I knew that she didn't know the two. And What Perfect Mix is kind of like people that may or may not know each other, just come in with completely different perspectives. And so originally the show was supposed to be completely about wrestling, pop culture, and fashion, sneakers, because Corey and I have a sneaker affinity. And so we stopped. We never talked about sneakers. I think we talked about sneakers one time and it just stayed on wrestling, but we have fun doing it and we do it every week. First it was once a week and then we started doing the Twitter Spaces Sparks program. And so we started doing twice a week. And so what turned into a passion project morphed into something bigger. And so then around maybe like 6 months ago, I started getting, hey, can you come on my show? And so I would just hop on folks' show. And so Black Rasslin reached out after the last time I was on their show. And then the next day I got like a DM saying, hey, we're looking to incorporate a woman within the space and get a kind of like a different perspective. Is this something that you would entertain? And at first I was like, I just want to write, but I had so much fun doing it because it felt like I've always felt a little young in the space because I'm a little bit older than most. And so I felt a little young in the space, but I have a young heart because I have an 18-year-old and my 18-year-old kind of likes the same things that I like. So I kind of felt like I was going through the motions, but not really going through the motions. And so I felt comfortable having the show with them and then coming to find out that they're OGs like me that like wrestling, that like sneakers, that like fashion. So I'm like, oh my God, it's like the perfect mix that likes jokes, you know? went to WrestleMania, had an amazing time with them, felt like these guys were my brothers, you know, and we're close in age. So it felt good. It felt good.
Right. It always feels good to like have like a community of people that either look like you or the same age, and it just feels like family, and you're like wrestling fans.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, you said you started watching wrestling at 9. Mm-hmm. So from my experience being in school, I was one of the few like diehard wrestling fans, and really like the only Black girl. So did you experience that, or what was that like? Did you ever feel like the oddball? Did you kind of find your little community at school that's like, okay, we're girls, we like wrestling, or we're Black girls and we like wrestling, or what was that like?
So I've always gotten along with everybody, and I've always meshed with boys. I was a tomboy. While the girls were on the swings or whatever, I was playing dodgeball, you know? And if the boys were swinging, because we used to swing super high in the park, I was swinging super high in the park with them as well. Right. So I've always gravitated. I have a lot of girlfriends, but I get along really well with men because I'm a nerd. I liked all the things that they like, played video games at one point. Right, and jokes, like I get the jokes, you know what I mean? I can sit in the barbershop, though I don't like to sit in the barbershop. I can sit in the barbershop and have that type of conversation. So as a kid, it kind of morphed into my adulthood, but none of the girls did like wrestling. So, but I didn't care, you know what I mean? So we would just talk about it then. I would go home and watch it with my brother-in-law, and then that would be it. You know what I mean? I'd be okay with it. I didn't care, and nobody really bothered me because I didn't really talk about it. Only I talked about it with Ray. That's the only person that I talked about it with. So yeah.
No, same. Like I had my brother, we loved wrestling, and it was like, we don't really care if anyone else does, because then we're going to go home, we're going to watch it. So it's whatever.
Yeah. And even now, like as an adult, like some of my coworkers are like, wow, that's so fascinating that you like wrestling. And I'm like, yeah, isn't it?
Right.
And that's it. Like there's nothing else. But then, you know, I came back from WrestleMania, and everybody wanted to know, how did it go? How did it go? So it's almost like they get a kick out of the fact that I'm a wrestling fan and I'm as old as I am, and they think that it's cool, you know what I mean? And though me and my son, we used to watch wrestling together. He went away to camp, and I used to write him the storylines that were happening while he was away at camp every week. And he stopped watching wrestling at the age of like 13 when he started getting into sports. He was playing like 4 sports at the time. And so I started watching it by myself, but then it evolved into writing, and it evolved into meeting other people on Twitter. So I've always found a comfort zone in the fan space.
Right. Isn't it crazy how you have that community on Twitter, and then you like go to somewhere like WrestleMania or like Wale Mania, and you finally meet your Twitter family, and it's like,
oh my God, it was
a username to a person. It's like you're real.
Yes, and it's almost like it feels weird calling that person their handle, but for 2 years,
like, you're at
doing right.
So I mean, I do it. I don't know your real name.
Exactly. And then they'll say, "Hey, call me this, call me that," and then I'll be like, "Okay, cool." But so much fun. So this weekend was so much fun. And the energy, I have to say, with I think we needed a break, as I talked about before, with the storylines and everything being so negative. And so I feel like we needed that 2.5 year break to kind of reset a little bit. And although people were still complaining online, I feel like it's a different space, and Dallas proved that, you know, even either at Wally, it was more about the camaraderie than anything. And so when we got into the stadium and we were watching the show, it was such a good show. And I think we needed that break. We absolutely needed that break.
Yeah, it was good just to watch it as a fan and not have to find, okay, this is what's wrong, this is what's right, this is what I should complain about, or this was okay, I should give them props for this. Just to like be able to chill and just be a fan is really refreshing. Because I too kind of stepped away from it a little bit and just kind of needed a break. So to be able to go back and be honest, I didn't know a lot about all of the storylines. So to be able to just watch it and enjoy it was really refreshing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the black wrestling guys, they're super cool. Like I see
Mhm.
how they could feel like brothers because I've seen them before, and they always had that vibe. So when you see them again, and it's like you see them in a room, and it's like, okay, I'm good.
Right, exactly. Like it just felt right. That mix felt right, and it's the same thing with Ellis and Corey and April. It just feels right. It's like we look forward to having these spaces together, and even in our separate group chat, we just talk about everything. We talk about family, we talk about news that's happening, and just giving each other the different perspectives, and the different outlooks is great. So it's like you juggle from back and forth, and I was just like, I hope, like, Ellis and Corey and April, that like they don't get upset that I'm going to do this, but they're super supportive. So I found myself saying, hey, are you, like, on Twitter, like, hey, are you going to be there? Are you going to be there? Maybe we can meet up, blah, blah, blah. But it was so overwhelming because it was so many people there that I was just like, you know what? Now that we have been away for so long and we've been co-hosting for, distantly for so long, I just want to spend time with the people that, I'm working with. So I split my time between the two, and it was perfect. Even incorporated April. Like, April met the guys, and for her birthday, because her birthday was, like, I think that Saturday. And it was just so much fun. She blended right in. Like, it was amazing. I cannot say anything negative about that weekend.
Right. Yeah, same. It was busy because you're trying to go to every event and you're trying to do everything, and this morning here and this morning there. But I mean, just because of the people, and it feels like a big reunion. It was like, it was worth it. It's like, I'll sleep when I get home. You came all the way across the country. Make it worth it,
Exactly. You have to. Like, you're gonna spend all that money for what? And be upset for what?
Exactly. And it's Mania weekend. Like, that was my first Mania weekend. So
right.
I was gonna make it count. But
right.
Yeah. And then, like, it's good, like what you were saying, everyone has their unbiased opinion because you didn't really know them before. So it's coming in and it's like, all right, like, I'm not gonna say anything that I think you would like, because I don't know you guys. So it's all unbiased. It's all just our raw opinions, and we're just making it work. So that's dope.
Exactly.
That's super dope.
Mimi.
Yes, sir.
So you were supposed to be here like a year ago, right? We were supposed to get you on the show.
No.
You don't remember that conversation?
We did. So a year ago, my situation was different, right? I was working for the company. I was working for the Fed. So around that time, although I absolutely was enjoying, but I was inside. So I was teetering, like, should I or shouldn't I? And so during that time, during my stint there, I opted to not do a lot of things. I only did the wrestling. I think I did those wrestling girls only because they have, like, a partnership with one of the licensees. So that's the only reason why I did that one. But I stayed away from, I think Public Enemy had asked me to be on their show too. And I stayed away from it because, they lurk.
When you say the Fed, what you mean by the Fed?
WWE.
You used to be employed by them.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but, we brought it there. What else did you do in wrestling? Because you said, you more on the writing side. Like, what type of things have you written out here?
So I love me some Roman Reigns. So for a lot, why do you look like that?
Oh no, go ahead.
Like that. Listen, the Roman project was very, very interesting, and I felt compelled that if I was going to write about wrestling, I always want to write about facts. Everything has to be factual. I always have to pull the data to make sure that it matches my opinion, though I'm trying to convince the reader, right? And so I started writing in a blog voice, like, in my opinion. And so as my writing has evolved, I started writing, like, factual stuff, like, this is what it is. And because I kind of felt like even with this iteration of Roman, people kind of, they still don't want it, right? Because they're still saying that they're still pushing us down his throat and blah blah blah, but people don't understand that Roman was always like this. He was just a watered down version of this, and we saw different like sparks of this throughout his babyface run. So now I'm like, okay, how much more can I talk about Roman, right? Like he's at the peak right now, kind of scratching the surface of his career. Let's start writing about other things that you like. So now I'm kind of wanting to write about the voice of the single mom that has the kid going off to college, talking about that experience because he's going to the deep south, and just having a Black boy, which is the common thread now, in America, and basically sneaker drops, clothing drops. He likes the same thing I like. What are Air Max Day? All the things that I like from a mom's perspective, and seeing the sneaker culture come evolve after all these years. Like I was wearing sneakers in high school back in 90, what? I'm dating myself, 93, 94, and just coming. Why you look like that?
I'm sorry. I'm just listening to my fault. 93, 95. Dang.
Yes. I've been wearing, remember those jumpsuit mini skirts? There were like overall mini skirts. I used to wear those with like Reebok pumps. You remember Reebok pumps?
Yeah, I remember them.
LA Gears. Like I've been doing sneakers for a very long time. I was wearing Air Force Ones, way back when.
What's your favorite sneaker?
Mine's are Air Maxes, are my absolute favorite. Air Max ones. And my second favorite are Jordan ones, because that was my very first pair in the 6th grade.
So we talked about WWE a lot, but we talked over Mania weekend, and I found out something interesting. So let's get into my bag. You know what I'm saying? If I go on my bag, people will say indie is my bag. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? And you said you was at your first indie show during Mania weekend.
Yes.
That was a lot of people's.
Describe that to me. You know what I'm saying?
So Trish and MJ Jenkins.
Amen.
Oh my God. I walked in, so we were a little late, admittedly. We were lost trying to get in. We were trying to get in, and we got a little lost. And I walked in on MJ Jenkins and Trish Adora. And very rarely can I walk into or turn on the TV and a match is happening or a storyline is happening or promo is happening, and I can kind of like pick up what's happening in that match. And I felt like it was a very powerful energy when I walked in watching that match. It could be because they were two powerful players in the ring. I've always read and seen clips of, and I saw a couple of interviews of Trish, just talking about her mom and that whole situation, and just her journey, but never have I seen her perform in the ring. And at the time, I think MJ was dominant in the ring at the time, and it felt like a fundamental match. It felt like they were teaching and telling a story at the same time.
Yeah, it was great storytelling.
Oh my God. And whatever that story was, I didn't care, because I was just like this. I was like, I pulled math. I was like, who, because I didn't know MJ's name. I knew her from NXT. I knew that she was at NXT. She was there when I was there. I did not know that she had gotten released. So I was like, wow, she looks familiar. And so he said, yes, that's MJ Jenkins. She used to be on NXT. I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that she had gotten released. And so I've never seen her in the ring either. And so I've only seen pictures. And so I'm watching this match, and I'm just in awe and just fascinated. And my eyes did not leave that ring until the match was over. And I just felt like an overwhelming experience. Like, wow, like my first experience there, going to an indie show, and I walk in on a women's wrestling match, and I had this emotion like that I can't describe. It's almost as if like they are two queens, but it was two majestic people in the ring dancing, and it was beautiful to see. The death match at the end is probably not for like, that's probably not, that was
I think we all kind of got up and was like,
that wasn't for me. That was
I tried. Like, I'm not about to ruin my outfit.
No,
I was like, okay, the blood, the glass. I was like, I'm just a little queasy. I'm stand in the back. I stood in the back where y'all were. I was like,
I was gonna stay up there, but when he broke the first light tube,
that's what it was.
And it came out and it like hit me on my leg. I was like,
I saw you get up. You were like,
I can't do this.
I'm good.
Y'all can have that.
So I was fine until that first fluorescent light broke, and I saw Hoodfoot's face, and I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna probably go outside. And
you left the building.
I left the space first, and I went over because I saw some people go over, and MJ was one of the people that went
they were over there saying,
and I really wanted to let her know the experience, and then Trish was there, so I was able to share the fact that this was my first, and I saw their match, and I just had a little conversation with them, and I did the beeline outside.
It was, but I feel like they gave a little disclaimer. They were like, hey,
it did.
This is gonna get crazy. You sit in the front row, this is your warning. So,
but I tried. I wanted to try, right? Because it was my first.
I was like, I
said, you know what? Thank you for the disclaimer. Let me try. I wasn't sitting in the front, but I was just like, let me just try this. Let me see how this goes. Yeah, this is not for me.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd loved it. And, for the culture is like, because there was a lot of people, some guys from NXT were in the crowd, just kind of standing out to the back. And it was their first indie show ever, too. A lot of the guys that are brought in NXT now, they're just their former athletes or high school football players or whatever. So they had never been on the indie scene, never seen an indie show. And it's just, that's probably one of the best indie shows you could, as your first experience, because I'm from South Carolina. So the indie shows out here, it's like giving Trailer Park,
But those are the best ones, right?
Like I'm just being like growing up, and it's good, it's good. You don't see a lot of yourself there, but it's if you love wrestling, you're not thinking about that, and especially if you're a kid, you're not thinking about that. But so you're like, even Grapple in DC, first time seeing Black wrestling and everything like that in Say It Loud in Florida. Like those were my first events where it was just like for the culture. It was like it was for Black people. There was a card full of Black wrestlers, and like I say all the time, if you would have told me as a kid that there were going to be events like that, or I was going to go to a wrestling event where like there was just a bunch of me's around, I would never believe you. I'd be like, yeah, you're kidding. So to be able to have these events, it's crazy, 'cause I'm used to, like I always say, I'm used to walking into an indie show, like Def Leppard or like Sweet Home Alabama, something like that is playing. So when you got like Moses coming out to see Murder and everything, and they pouring the Henny up and stuff like it's different. It feels like a cookout. You don't know any of these people, but it feels like family.
Like a cookout.
And for the culture, it was just so much.
Yes.
It was just energy. Everyone was having fun. It's been a weekend. Great card, great storytelling.
Yep.
It wasn't a bunch of high spots. It was just entertainment.
I will say that I've talked about this before, where the wrestling fan landscape is completely different. Like, this started off as an all-white type professional wrestling space. Like, it was one thing that you always saw, one outlook that you always saw, and now it's like a rainbow, and it's so beautiful to see, and it's so many women. I remember as a child like not being interested when the women came on the screen. Only Wendy Richter, because I felt like she really
she was cool.
She was cool, and she she was energetic in the ring, so it kept your energy. But I really wasn't into the women's wrestling. And so now to see that the space is just, there's promotions dedicated to just women. It's beautiful to see. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Right.
I love wrestling and you love wrestling, then you're not here, you missing out. Is this show?